You're listening to What's Contemporary Now, a show about culture and the people, places, and things that together make it up.
Today's episode was recorded the morning after Adam Selman's first Victoria's Secret fashion show as the brand's new creative director, and the emotions were certainly still in the air. What fascinated me most ahead of the show was how every conversation I encountered centered on the excitement for the man behind what we were about to see. By the end of the episode, I suspect you too will join this fandom because Adam is remarkably easy to appreciate. Despite the impressive accolades across his work with Britney and Gaga and Rihanna, he's no stranger to the challenges that often face creatives determined to make their mark. With a beginning that practically started with a pair of panties that he'd made, this new role feels as full circle as it does perfectly fitting.
This is Adam Selman, and we're talking about what's contemporary now.
Adam Selman, it's the morning after the big debut show. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It was a huge output, so I'm a little bit jumbled at the same time. I think doing a podcast the morning after the show is a feat in itself too, like a lot of emotions, I will say, for sure.
Absolutely. Let's dig into them because we have so much to talk about in terms of your backstory, this particular show, your work at the brand and all that fun stuff. But I feel like it's a unique opportunity to connect with you in such close proximity to such a spectacular moment. So let's talk about what the emotional experience was last night and how you're feeling today, because that's a pretty big feat.
It really is. It was just so joyful. Thank you for calling it spectacular. I can't even describe the backstage. It was so calm. And everyone was like, it's because of you. It's because of you. Because I really do try to keep as calm as possible. And it was just such good vibes and it was such good energy. And I don't know, I just had a blast. And it really felt like this whole familial unit coming together to put on this beautiful show. So I hope that's what people took away or at least felt from it.
And you also had pre-existing relationships with some of the talent that you chose to bring in for this show, right?
I did. Yeah. A lot of them, actually. A big reason why I opened with Jasmine, actually, was she did my first fashion show when I was nobody. And she agreed to do my fashion show. And it was more of a presentation than a runway show. And, she was top. It was Victoria's Secret model. So it just felt like the perfect sort of circle moment that it was my first show here and she was pregnant. And it was just such a beautiful thing. Almost every single person, I made sure to go around and talk to them, connect with them. Even certain looks I had designed for a lot of the talent, and I'd called them or texted them and said, do you like this? What would you change? So it really was more of an exchange of building this together.
Is it true that Jasmine was going to be induced today and that she had a doula backstage?
Didn't have a doula backstage, which is incredible. I think she's 3 weeks out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was just such a beautiful moment. And she owned it. And there were tears backstage. There were tears through the run through too. It was just incredible. It was so impactful.
It definitely had incredible energy. And even girls that have done the show historically seem to have a different kind of serenity about them. And I heard similar experiences when it came to the backstage that you just described as far as how calm and incredible everybody felt. Something that I really appreciated attending the show and running into so many people was that it was almost as though everybody was the most excited for you. It was all about Adam and everybody was having their own Adam stories and talking about how incredibly sweet he is and how much they loved him. And I don't know if you took a lot of meetings ahead of this show or if these are all pre-existing relationships, but people felt very proud to have met you and to see you with this success.
That's the ultimate joy, right? I mean, I've just been so lucky in this industry to really build genuine connections with people. And I felt oh my God, I'm emotional after that because it really is just such an output, but I really wanted to keep a personal connection in almost every touch point of this show because it's a big show. It's a huge thing, right? And the brand is so huge, but it was more about me making a personal connection with every single touch point. So almost everybody, even behind the scenes, I have my person that I've worked with for 15 years, building the collection with me. And her name's Marley. And I was I held it together until the very end whenever I saw her and I just hugged her and we wept. And, just because we've done so much together. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little speechless after hearing that, but it wasn't about me. I think was the best part it was more about the connection.
I think that was definitely something that was tangible. And what led to the decision to bring on the legendary Carleen Surf? That's quite a pair.
I've always had such respect for her. I think with this job as a whole in my career, I've always been looking for people to help finish my sentences. And with this role in particular, she was the perfect person. We laughed the entire time. We laughed and we had so much fun building these looks together. And whenever I wanted to push it, I'm like, no, that's not how I saw it. That's not how I designed her. She was like, no, like this, oh, it's perfect, just as it is. And we were just laughing. We stood next to each other in last looks last night. And there were moments where she like pushed me out of the way to get closer to the screen. And she's like, look at this is amazing. And it was so fun to do it. And she really is just such a life force. She's such a legend for a reason. And she understands the tension, right? She understands the push and the pull. And that's what I really need to help bring this all together. She was incredible. And Pat and Jawara and Pier Giorgio, it was just a powerhouse team that helped me do this.
Something that you had said in your conversation with the lovely Nicole Phelps that I thought was very applicable to both the individual experience of yourself, that of the brand, and really anyone alive, was the understanding that you can't be everything to everyone. And I wanted to ask, what moment in this journey with this role did you understand that?
I think I knew coming into this, that was part of it. Like that was a big part of the challenge. And I think that as long as we're in on it, that I'm like aware and creating the moments together and being real and honest in the moment, I think is where I can let that go, right? That I know that people are never going to be satisfied. This is like unlike anything else in this industry, right? It's not a traditional fashion thing, right? It's not a traditional, oh, here are my designs. What do you take away from this? Every single part, it's like dissected to the nth degree. So I knew that coming into the job before I even signed on the dotted line. I knew that this is going to be a thing and I just have to accept it.
You also talk about the importance of things like storytelling, something that you've always been good at. And you wanted to tell the stories of the talent along with new stories. Maybe a part of that process is left to the interpretation of the audience, but sometimes we like to get granular. And I wanted to understand which stories you were looking to tell with this show.
Even the intro film, which like I'm just so proud of. I did it with Torso Solutions and it's a spoof, right? Like you're supposed to watch it and laugh. And that's the thing, like it's such a ridiculous thing and the backstage. And I wanted to heighten things like that. So that's one part of it, right? That was a story that I wanted to get across is this is joy. This is fun. This is ridiculousness. And also like poke fun with the audience because they were like, we need more backstage. We need more bombshell. We need more blowouts, more glamour. So it really was like, me hopefully playing with the audience that like, hey, we hear you, we see you, and like, let's, laugh. So even me fixing Candace in the intro film was a whole thing. So that was a big story. I think recontextualizing like what an angel is was such a big thing. I think Angel Reese and Sunisa Lee. And I just think it really was like a joyful cast of women, just also setting this in like morning to night, like the set and the whole storyline, the arc of the show was a big thing for me too. So I went into it saying like, oh, I want to tell these deep stories and I want people to feel. And then I think as I got closer and closer, I'm like, okay, I think I've done everything I can do as far as that goes. And I have to look in the quieter moments to get that, or take a step away from the glamour and the pop and the culture, sort of look at the deeper stories that I really wanted to get across. But I think I was successful in that. And I think for me, I'm really happy with where it landed.
Well, Victoria's Secret in and of itself is such a storied brand, and obviously it's had its own journey. So stepping into this role, where do you think it sits in the culture today, and where is it that you would like it to go?
Yeah, we're not in the early 2000s anymore. The brand is very different. But then you look at runways and, even angels are way out there, right? Like you look at Iris Van Herpen and even the new Mugler, there's so many coded things for that. So I'm like, wow, we're tapped into that already. That's us. And then even Louis Vuitton is redoing the Murakami bags, and so like a reach back into nostalgia or for fashion and for culture. What was it like? So I think culture at large is having that moment, and it would be foolish for me to not acknowledge that, be in on it and play into it. So there's definitely like a huge part of that with the show as well.
For sure. And something else that we've seen a lot of conversation around this season, mainly due to its absence, is the importance of size diversity and inclusivity. You obviously did an incredible job at that. And I wanted to ask why you thought it has such a hard time sticking as a general industry practice, and see what you thought of moments where it reads as authentic versus tokenistic.
I think we're all sick of ticking boxes, right? We got to have that. We got to have that. And so it goes back to those personal connections that I have. Before I even booked talent, like they came in, I connected with them. I talked to them, like Precious and I held hands and talked to each other. And I was like, oh, wow, we vibe. Like we are in it. And Does this work for you? How do you feel? What do you like? What don't you like? And oh my God, who are you bringing to the show? Oh my God, you're bringing your mom. I got to meet her mom last night. I'm always going to stand for inclusivity, diversity. That's a huge part of me, what I've been striving to build. So that was always going to be part of it, right? So I didn't even really think about it. It was more about finding it in a genuine way for somebody who wanted to do the show. I think that the industry at large has a hard time because it's an expensive process, which I've talked about. Having my brand, Adam Selman Sport, we try to do 80% recycled materials and sustainable packaging and biodegradable. And we were a tiny company. So we tried to do that. And we did X extra small through X extra large. It's a hard thing to order all the samples like ahead of time before the photo shoots, because that all happens so last minute before any kind of presentation. And you want to put people in the right size and make sure the product looks great and the right fit for everyone without tailoring too much so that like the product that it matches up for what's actually for sale, right? So I think that there's a bit of logistical things that like the industry hasn't figured out, which is like probably the biggest challenge. And I would say the brands that are really trying to do it are the smaller brands. And it's such a huge expense. And that's just part of the reality of it.
Yeah, it is also ironic now that smaller brands with smaller budgets are cutting into their margins more to accommodate these things that one would expect larger brands to do.
Exactly. And also, the brands are going to go where the dollars are. That's just the harsh reality. Like if the sizes aren't being sold, they're not going to continue to order them. So you can do it for a certain period of time, but at a point, brands are going to pivot. Luckily at Victoria's Secret, like we do have such a range and we do have an offering. We've doubled down. We have things in the pipeline. Like it's so imperative for the brand. And that's part of the reason why I'm with the brand too. And it was easier to show the diversity is because we actually had the product for it.
You touch so many different aspects of the brand in the current role you hold that it's hard to rattle off without just hearing it straight from your lips. So can you tell us exactly what this role does entail?
So my new role, it's like Victoria's Secret, Intimates, VS Pink, and Beauty as well. I'm really in charge of all visuals. I just got in charge of stores as of this week as well. So I'm going to take that on, which is a huge undertaking. Say a prayer for me. In charge of copy, in charge of creative, which is all of the photo shoots and social for the brands. And then with the PR team as well. So yeah, it's a huge undertaking, a huge team, but it's incredible because it's like real resources and a real powerhouse team working on it.
What are the secrets in your life when it comes to practices and different things that allow you to sustain that level of output that this job demands? It's a lot of creativity.
It's a lot of creativity. I really see creativity as a practice, right? I've been at it for a long time. I was a maker for a long time. I would also say like the last few years, I really took a step back. I needed to like reassess what I was doing creatively. I took a hiatus. I was still working. I was still creating every day, but I really took a step away from like the public. I needed a break from Instagram. I needed a break from socials. I needed to just recenter myself. I really got into TM, like transcendental meditation. I work out religiously. I love working out. It is such a release. I reassess friend groups. And even I lived in LA for the last 3 years, and that allowed a lot of time upstairs, which is amazing. And it paid off. I reassessed my values. I reassessed what I was doing with my life, where I wanted it to go. And I feel much better and more comfortable as Adam. And the difference between Adam the man and Adam the brand. And I'm just in a much richer place now.
Yeah, you talked about having taken that time away to really decide how it is you wanted to come back and show up in the world. And you've just touched upon that in some ways. But how would you describe the difference in how it is that you show up today versus how you perhaps may have shown up prior to having taken that break and having had the time to think?
Having my own brand, I didn't know what I was getting into. And I had a hard time like working through some of that. At the end of the day, it became logistical, right? And it was about me. Yes, I had people helping me even with like finances and everything. But like at the end of the day, it was like all came to me. And that it almost became a burden in that I wasn't able to do what I was really good at. And even like working with some partners that it like wasn't a logistical fit or it wasn't a creative fit, and figuring out what was right and what was wrong for me. It was just hard to understand, I think, who I was at like the end of it, right? At the end of my brand. And then I was like, where do I fit into all of this? Because I had given so much to try to make it work, to show up to the events, to do the things. And then what was I doing it for? Was I doing it for the press or the accolades or the clothes or the money? So it just took a minute to like really do some inner searching and inner dialogue around that. And I think it all paid off because now I'm at peace with what I did right and what I feel like I did wrong or what I would have done differently.
Do you feel like your why has changed?
I don't know if my why has changed, actually. I think it's just being a little bit more intentional with the why and propelling myself forward as opposed to maybe having too much inner dialogue about it.
I love that. Hindsight is always 2020. And so when you look at your resume that led up to this particular moment, it seems only fitting that you're now in this role because you've spent an incredible amount of time, whether it was working with Zaldi or doing what you had done with Britney, Gaga, obviously that iconic naked dress moment and everything that followed with Rihanna.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think best or most prepared you for the role that you now occupy out of all of those experiences?
I think you just said it, right? I have a great toolbox because I've had a windy road in this industry. There wasn't like a clear arrow to something, right? All those little pieces and the things that I put in my toolbox along the way made it a lot easier for me to be able to do the show and the brand and my role within that, because it's almost like two separate things.
Mm-hmm.
But even my role as a maker, right? The last week and 3 weeks, really, the fittings and the looks with Carlene. And then after everyone would leave, except for the collections team, which was like making it, then I would go into the collection team and be like, okay, that didn't work. How are we going to solve that? Okay, let's break this off and make this into a headpiece. Let's do this and tweak it. Like the day before the show, the night before the show, we did a run through and something broke, right? Like a back piece broke. And so then everyone was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And after everyone left, we took the back piece, put it on. And I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I snapped off like a big piece of it. And I was like, let's take this, let's do this. And I think even just having that as a toolbox and being like, we can't be afraid of it. We have to own it. Let's make it. Let's like do it. And then it all came together and it like worked. That's what my career was built on, was a maker. So it made it easier to sort of be able to guide some of this stuff forward and then also actually be able to be hands-on in moments that I needed to be.
And do you feel like having worked so closely with someone like Rihanna, you learned a lot about not just collaboration and instinct, but also cultural resonance in terms of how that might apply to something as big as a Victoria's Secret fashion show?
Definitely. Rihanna, like the school of Rihanna, right? Like she's just a powerhouse. She's incredible. I can't say enough good things. Learned so much with her. I mean, even just working with her and building 3 world tours with her. And even before that, I built with Zaldi, like Michael Jackson's last tour as well. It's just like a wild run in the industry and then building on those cultural moments. And culture has changed so much. Like even whenever we started doing Rihanna's tour, that's a very different time than where we are today. Whenever I did the naked dress was a very different time now than then. There's almost couldn't be that same moment now as it could have been then. I think it's definitely just shaped me and been able to be like, okay, we got to play into that. We got to do that. It's also just being able to step back and look at the bigger picture of culture and be like, where can we fit into it? And which parts can we pluck from and play within and push forward with and maybe pull back from too.
Something else you talk about a lot and you've already mentioned during this conversation is joy. And obviously the world definitely needs more of it. What role do you think joy does play in anything from brand communications at a brand like Victoria's Secret to the way you choose to show up in these collaborations and opportunities and just how we all move through the world?
Such a great question. I think as far as Victoria's Secret, it is built on joy. Like it's the people that work at Victoria's Secret, the women for the most part that work there, they're shaping this really. And even like the stories that they have, there's so many people in the building that have worked there for a long time and they've helped shape how I think about the company. And even the stories that they tell me about, like even store associates have told me about like why they worked in the store for 15 years or why they love fitting bras and they want to be customer facing as opposed to like behind the scenes or like in the corporate side of things. So it's really interesting to hear those stories. And then I'm able to take those stories, then apply how we're able to go to market with it or how we're able to like be like, that's the story. That's the important part. And that's what really brings joy or shows joy. Even whenever we launched the Body by Victoria Flex Factor campaign, I'm an innovation nerd, especially when it comes to bras and intimates, because there's so much there. Like if you don't work in that sector, I don't think you realize how much goes into it. And even whenever I first came in the door and they're like, here's what we're working on, here's what we're launching in July. And they showed me this underwire, which is usually hard and not bendy and it's so uncomfortable. And the first thing that women do is take off their bra before they even put down their bag or throw down their keys, right? Whenever they get home. So like they show me this underwire and it can do a full knot. I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. that is it. That's the cool part, right? That's the innovation. I was like, we can really make that. And so then we came up with this tagline that's better than braless, because like that's the joy, right? And then we did this campaign and the people are running through the street, like taking their clothes off. And it's ridiculous, but it's also joy, right? It really is that sort of idea of it doesn't feel like anything. It's weightless. It's joyful, because that's really like the point of it. My work is to show that freedom and joyfulness, even in the sexier moments or the more sultry moments, I guess I should say, is to try to tap into that joy.
Also, such a huge part of a brand's identity is the feeling it evokes, right?
Exactly. And then the people who bring it to life.
Speaking of the people who bring it to life, you are stepping into the conversation of gender, right? And despite the fact that you're a gay man with a long-standing reverence for the incredible force that are women, what do you think about this conversation around the idea of a men's lens on women's apparel? And more specifically, I suppose in this case, lingerie.
Definitely. It's not an easy conversation to have, but it's one that I like to have. I'm very aware of it. I'm very like forward about it. I'm not the kind of person, I'm not the kind of creative that doesn't want to have the conversation in design, in building things. I'm very collaborative in how it approaches. So yes, I am the creative part of this brand, but I would say like all my bosses are women. Right. Like I answer to them. Right. So at the end of the day, I might present something and they're like, no way, that's not happening. So it really is a dialogue around it. And then I lean on the women to help shape it and bring it to life. I think the industry has a long way to go with this. And I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm a man in a women's space. And I think I've been very fortunate to have amazing women around me build me up. I've always been more comfortable with women. They've always been my safe space. So I guess I'm just super, super lucky and fortunate to have them.
Not to get too deep, but why do you think that is?
You know, as a gay boy in Texas growing up, I feel like I had a hard time finding my way. I tried a lot of different things. My dad was like a coach at one point, and he was like, try this, try that, with love. And then I settled into cheerleading, right? Like I was a competitive cheerleader growing up, or like in high school. And that's when I kind of like popped and I flourished, I think, because I was like around these girlfriends who I'm still like really close with. And I just went to Texas for a wedding with one of my best friends, and we still talk every week. And they just huddled around me because I was the first cheerleader in my high school. And we were in small co-ed with competitive cheerleading. Talk about community, right? Like that was it. And they just embraced me. They lifted me up. And whenever I was like, well, I want to move to New York and I want to do this. And then everyone was like, yes, you're going to do that. And then every single thing has just kept propelling me forward. And I feel like even the people that I'm friends with today, like Amy Sedaris, and I talk to her every single day, and look, she's right behind me. But I feel like they're the ones who are like lifting me up and making things happen and saying, yes, you can, Adam. Yes, you can. And that's the powerful part.
Speaking of Texas and cheerleading, let's go back to that portion because we jumped over it in the excitement of last night's events. So what were some of the formative experiences early on beyond what you've just described in terms of finding that sense of community? Obviously, growing up in Texas, being gay, the cheerleading, I believe that you were initially planning to study sculpture before your parents' interest in business drove you to decide, okay, fashion is a version of that. But what other experiences from your childhood do you think really shaped you into the person you are today?
Yeah, I do think that I've always been a dreamer. I think I've like always been like in my head. I've always been like forward momentum. What's next? What's next? What's next? Look at us. And just a little bit off the beaten path, I would say. And so I was eager to get to New York. I'm not a big reminiscer. I don't really think back to my childhood that often. I'm more thinking forward than thinking back. And then I felt like I didn't really pop until I moved to New York. And even in that, I was painfully shy, like so shy whenever I moved here. And I met Zaldi. I actually met Zaldi through this guy named Desi Santiago, who's an incredible artist and jewelry maker. And he was like, Adam, you're really going to like Zaldi. So Zaldi and I met, and I got to work in the Chelsea Hotel. It was this world that I didn't even know existed in fashion. And so that was eye-opening. And it was like, hey, Adam, come to this club with us. Or like, hey, do you want to go to this party? And it was like Amanda Lepore in early 2000s. And it was just like so eye-opening. And it was the time of Electroclash and like the parties in Williamsburg. And I went to school in Pratt in Brooklyn. So it was just this whole whirlwind. But the way that Zaldi taught me and curated a like family mentality really educated me in how I built the world around me today. Like that was really informative and something that stuck in a really deep way.
How does one go from being shy to being in the role that you currently occupy? I wouldn't imagine that you can be very shy in those atmospheres.
I think I definitely like learned to push the shyness down and bring it out. Even whenever I met Amy, she was like, oh my God, you were so shy. Maybe it wasn't so shy as I was like more of an observer. I didn't know where to put myself yet, but I was taking it all in and really looking at the things in front of me and soaking it up and then being like, okay, this is my education, where I didn't get it growing up in Texas because it was so isolated. And then whenever I moved to New York City, everything popped. So I was like, just like sponging it all up. And so now, I'm able to do this job because I'm not shy. I'm more sure-footed around things. And I think that sponging at an early age really helped inform me and like how I want to show up.
Well, experiences also fortify wherewithal and resilience and the level of determination that it takes to get to where it is you are today. And something that I really thought was such a valuable anecdote to tap into was this duality of you working with Rihanna, right? You're winning at life in this public eye and everybody thinks that you're living the dream. And yet you're still waking up the next morning to go be a tailor on a Nike job to pay the bills. And they just felt like, let's unpack that, because most people are only going to see your story and your impressive resume and think that you're one of the lucky few who made it, despite the fact that other people have certainly tried, but not without struggle. So what do you think you learned from those challenges that have really given you the kind of robust version of yourself that you've just described today?
Yeah, I think I have an enviable career, I would say. And I think I'm just now realizing that in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm.
I had a studio on 29th Street whenever I had my brand, and it was inside a potter studio. That was my first thing. And I was lucky to have a workspace, which was amazing, but it was covered in dust. And I'm trying to make these like costumes and things. And it eventually got bigger. But there was like one time Rihanna and Anna Wintour came to my studio on 29th Street and it was trash day.
Oh no. Was it an unplanned, unscheduled visit?
No, it was like they were supposed to come earlier in the day, but it ran later in the day. And then there was like trash night. But at the building, they just stacked all the trash in the opening hallway and like the front hallway. So like Anna and Rihanna had to like go buy this huge pile of trash. But I was like, you know what? At least it's real.
Yeah.
This is like the life of like, I don't come from wealth, and when I've had to scrap and make my way in this. And I started as a handyman at 2 to be able to pay the bills. I wish that those lessons were over, by the way. I wish that they were over, but I'm still learning them. Even in the show, things are very raw and very personal. And then I'm like, wait, I'm still learning lessons. I thought I was done with this, but I think it's just like that constant like acceptance of learning lessons, or that duality and accepting the duality of it. Like, I think it's just part of the process. It's just part of how to do it, how to keep propelling yourself forward. And I think that like those are why I'm hoping that I can be able to tell more of these stories or dig a little bit deeper in how we bring product to life at the brand, because those stories are so much richer and like understanding the reality of ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that dreams are expensive, I think is something I say a lot too. And it's all worth it, right? Like it's, if you want it, you can get it. It just might take some learning lessons to get there.
Do you think that this idea that we've bridged the gap while sustaining the kind of aspirational aspect of fashion or a brand like VS and that cultural phenomenon in the context of the larger conversation as far as ideals around beauty is one that's actually found its footing, or do you still think it's a work in progress?
I think that's always going to be something that is like a work in progress. I think it's always going to be something we're trying to dial in on, and that our culture is going to move us in different directions. I think if we feel like we figured out is like the moment that it's going to change. So like that's the kind of thing that I think is going to be always evolving. That's the fun part.
I just feel like all eyes are on that type of a conversation when it comes to VS, because it has been so beauty centric in the past in terms of how things are idealized or views are celebrated. But in your eyes, as far as cultural signals that are alive, and we've touched upon some of them, but what do you think are the most important ones to really pay attention to right now?
To me, so much feels phony. Like right now, everything feels like that's not real, or she wasn't at that event and they just parsed it together. Or like, to me, it just feels so phony. And then like social media has made things so like, is that real or is that not real? Like, look, let me set up this camera and look how beautiful I am. But there's like a string of lights in front of you to like do it. But I'm just at home getting ready. There's such an illusion already happening with everything. So I think that like you have to accept it because that's where we're at. I think you have to like tease at it at the same time. You have to be part of it, because if you're not part of it, then that's weird too, or that's not real. But then also to acknowledge that like it is phony, I think is like pretty cool too.
It's definitely at an all-time high when it comes to things like AI generated videos on Instagram that you have to double check in the comments whether or not what you're looking at is real. And they choose the most random things to create.
Like the bunnies on the trampoline, you know, it was like, we're here.
You did say you're a big fan of innovation. So what do you think about AI?
I think AI is pretty cool. I think there's definitely like a time and a place. Like I'm always going to be tactile. I'm always going to wish that we were doing this in person. I love looking at someone in the eye. I love putting my phone down, and there's no substitute for that. I think AI will change the game. I definitely think we're entering a new stratosphere as far as that goes. So I'm interested to see what can happen. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean, optimism, I think, is a necessity, and it leads to far more creative thinking anyway. But when it comes to what we've been talking about around things like revisiting beauty ideals or bridging gaps or inclusivity and retaining aspiration, whatever that means or why they're thought of as opposing ideologies, you brought back some favorites last night at the show. You had friends come in like the lovely Barbie, but you know, in the past, it was such a kind of monolithic idea, according to some, as far as what made a VS model. And that's certainly not the case anymore. So who were you really excited about having the chance to put on the runway for the first time last night?
Like obviously Angel, Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sunisa was huge. Abby Champion. It was her first show. I love Abby. Precious's first time as well. That was amazing to experience together. There was a lot of firsts actually last night. And I think for me, there's also a girl named Diane. I love her so much. We've shot together, like we've done photo shoots together, and we instantly connected as well. And she's just got the most spectacular smile and like beaming energy. We cried together at the show, and I'm like, we did it. So like that was really fun because again, it was just a personal connection that I had, and it's amazing because like this show in particular, like really does give people like real dream come true status, right? And to be able to like give that to them with them is just so powerful. And to give those experiences for like things that people have always dreamed about, I don't take that lightly either.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated seeing the enthusiasm of that newer generation of girl and their own relationship to something like Victoria's Secret, because obviously you have your icons like Adriana or Candice or these pre-existing superstars of the Victoria's Secret world. But then you have Alex Consani, who lives to be on that runway and definitely, you know, makes dreams come true, or a Knock, or a War's exuberance and that $1 million smile as she came out. I just felt like seeing that new generation's love for the brand in a way that was really similar to what we're used to seeing in all its previous iterations felt like a really promising kind of move towards the future that your role represents.
I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you could feel it. That's the kind of thing that I just have to take and be happy with. And I think that's what the brand is going for. I think that's what Hillary wanted. I think that was like the task at hand. So I'm glad that you felt it.
Do you feel like you're in front of any particular challenges that you're either already navigating or anticipating facing as you trek forward in this exciting new chapter?
No, I mean, I definitely think there's a ton of work, right? And it's all exciting work. Like I'm really eager to get into Pink and sort of find the voice and the product and how we can tell those stories better. And I think move at the speed of culture in particular for Pink is very exciting. I think we're all energized by it within the brand. I'm very excited about beauty. I think beauty is a powerhouse. We have the number one fragrance in America. I think that there's some real heavy duty opportunity within beauty. So I'm thrilled about that. And then I'm stoked about the stores because I think that like customer experience is so important.
Now more than ever, right?
Now more than ever. And we are so unique in that like we are a mall brand, right? But we have lots of stores and we're almost in everyone's backyard. And so like if you need to get fit, if you need to find the right solution for you, like that's something that VS really can offer to you in a very tangible way. And I'm very eager to jump into that.
There's been a lot of talk also around the idea of creating third spaces, right? In order to really secure and retain your consumer base so that it's not just marketing and, you know, purchasing product. There's some type of shared environment space, set of values, identity, whatever it might be that they can really tap into as a bonding experience for the brand. Outside of obviously, you know, redesigning stores, the incredible show that happened last night and a lot of what it is you're doing on the design side. Do you have any curiosity as far as exploring those types of experiential aspects of the business?
Definitely. I think that's a huge opportunity for the brand. I think that we want to have more fun there, maybe more of an expressive idea from VS and like how we go to market and how we can play with that, even within Pink, because I think that's what the youth really want as well. So yeah, we're definitely having a lot of conversations around that. And I think it would allow us to have more fun because we have so much product. We have so much offering that it'd be cool to be able to take a smaller offering and be like, here's a real idea. Here's an expression for this idea. And I think that's the huge unlock for us.
I know that certain divisions had been let go years ago, but for those who don't know, because you're talking about Pink a fair bit, what are the categories in terms of the product offering that exists under the umbrella?
So we have intimates, and that's really what I'm talking about, right? Our bras are world class. Like we have so much, and I'm a big proponent in finding what's right for you. I really want the brand to feel like an invitation, right? Come in, find out what's right for you, find out how you feel best. Feeling is so important to me, I think to all of us at the brand. And you have to feel your best to, I'm using air quotes, to look your best, right? And I think that there's so much opportunity there, but like I speak bra, right? Like I speak bra. I know the difference between a demi and a plunge and a foam molding, a marshmallow pad. There's so much, but most people don't need to speak bra, right? But we have people at the store who can really find what's right for each individual person, just to take the time and make it fun. And you could really find out what works and what doesn't work too. Because I love bad ideas and I love finding out what doesn't work so you can find out what works.
Your relationship to intimates is long-standing, right? Wasn't there some starting story tale about the Purple magazine shoot and panties for Rihanna that Mel used?
Yes. Like I was just making things to make them, my sewing machine at home. And I had made these sort of like panties and cute bras and things like that. And then Mel and I were dating and then Mel was like, can I use those for a shoot? And I was like, yeah. And so then he used them and it was this amazing shoot in purple. And then part of the job, the reason why Rihanna started working with Mel was she saw that photo shoot and she was like, give me a call. So then whenever she did that, she was like, I want those panties. So we made those panties for her Only Girl in the World tour that opened it. Yeah, I guess there is sort of a full circle moment.
Yeah, you were clearly born for this.
Yeah, right.
We wanted to do a series of quick fire questions as we approach the end of this conversation. Some might touch upon different things that we've discussed, but let's just jump right in. Optimist, pessimist, or realist?
I'm going to go with optimist.
Love. Fear. What is its role in your life?
I think going back to like lessons that I've learned, anytime that I operate or make a decision that's fear-based, never works. It's always the wrong decision. So I really try to lean out of fear and lean into the opposite.
We've talked about this, but let's do it anyway. Innovation, thrilling, daunting, or both?
Thrilling, beyond thrilling. Like we need more of it and I crave it.
Freedom, how would you define it today?
I think freedom for me is being comfortable in my own skin, being able to make the choices that I feel are right for me.
And last, but certainly not least, what is contemporary now?
What is contemporary now? I think joy. I think joy is contemporary now. I think feeling is contemporary now. I think that celebration is really what it's all about.
This was a beautiful conversation. You're a beautiful human. I'm so happy for your success. Thank you again for doing this the day after such a big night in your life.
Thank you so much, Christopher. I really appreciate you having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of What's Contemporary Now. A special thanks to our producer, Sasha Grinblad. Audio post-production by Chase Coughlin with original theme music by Joseph Topmiller and Chase Coughlin of The Black Soft. And visual design by Aaron Meager and Graham Prentice. Subscribe now to be the first to catch new episodes each week. And if you've enjoyed listening, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review and let us know your thoughts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for additional content and join the conversation. Let us know what you think is contemporary now.